January 1, 2024. Buenos Aires, Almirante. Brown District. The holiday morning in the Ayala household began with an eerie kind of silence. By midday, that silence had grown deeply unsettling. Annabelia Ayala, 30 years old, hadn't come out for breakfast. She wasn't answering her phone, even though her device could be heard ringing just behind her bedroom wall. After repeated knocking brought no response, Carlos Juan Ayala forced the lock and entered his daughter's room. Inside, Carlos found Annabelia unresponsive. But what immediately caught his attention was something that turned the scene from a family tragedy into what looked like a set for a documentary. Just a couple of feet from the head of the bed stood a tablet tightly mounted on a tripod. The camera lens was aimed directly at the pillow. The screen glowed faintly in the dim room, still active, still transmitting. The realization hit hard. Someone had been watching live. As the family tried to help Annabelia, the device continued streaming. The broadcast, which had begun on New Year's Eve, didn't stop. Not even when cries for help echoed through the Ayala home. When detectives and forensic investigators arrived, they quickly ruled out forced entry. There were no signs of tampering on the windows or doors, and nothing appeared to be stolen. The focus immediately shifted to the technology at the scene. Experts determined that the camera angle had been set with near professional precision. The shot captured not only the bed, but also the single entryway into the room. The tablet wasn't being used as a communication device. It was functioning as a hidden surveillance unit, transmitting its signal to a remote location. The investigation took a major turn when officers began digging into the digital activity of those closest to Annabelia Ayala. That's when a name surfaced for the first time in the case files: Junior Benitez. At the time, he was widely known as a professional soccer player who had played for major clubs in Argentina and across Europe. But now, for detectives, his name appeared under very different circumstances. The trail from the streaming tablet led directly to his account. While officers were still on the scene, relatives of the athlete began receiving voice messages from Benitez himself. In the recordings, he calmly confessed that he had seen everything that happened in Annabelia Ayala's room. His voice was steady, unemotional. He described her actions in such detail, investigators determined he had to have been watching the live stream as it unfolded. A deeper look into Benitez's legal situation revealed another disturbing layer. As of that New Year's Eve, a restraining order was already in effect, legally barring him from coming within 1,000 feet of Annabelia Ayala or her home. The existence of the video feed became undeniable proof that he had found a way to bypass the law, establishing total visual control over her life. 2. Understand how a successful athlete became a digital observer and why he held such power over Annabelia Ayala. We need to go back to the very beginning of their relationship. To understand what happened on New Year's Eve, we have to go back to 2018, the year everything began. Annabelia Ayala was the daughter of Carlos Juan and Cecilia Ayala. The family lived in Almirante Brown, a quiet suburb just outside Buenos Aires. By the age of 24, Annabelia had earned 2 college degrees and led a calm, academic-focused life. Her father, Carlos, did everything he could to support her, always striving to meet her needs and make her feel safe. To those close to her, she was known as thoughtful, studious, and deeply committed to her education and books. Around this time, Junior Benitez returned to Argentina. He was 27. A professional soccer player, he had been signed with Portugal Espas Benfica, but transferred on loan to Boca Juniors, one of the country's most high-profile teams. His status as a public figure and successful athlete painted him as a promising, well-off man with a bright future. Annabelia Ayala and Junior Benitez met in 2018. At first, their relationship appeared perfectly normal from the outside, but it didn't take long before Carlos began noticing subtle changes in his daughter. Once open and talkative, Annabelia had become unusually withdrawn. Carlos tried to have a direct conversation, asking her if everything was all right. In response, Annabelia asked her father to stay out of her personal life. She said she was an adult and would handle things herself. Carlos assumed these were just growing pains, the kind of tension that sometimes happens in young relationships. He chose to step back, simply watching from a distance. But the truth, which would surface much later, suggested that the aggressive behavior had started early on. Annabelia began wearing clothing that fully covered her arms and legs, long-sleeved tops, and heavy pants. Relatives would later connect this to her need to hide bruising. She also began wearing thick makeup and styling her hair in ways that kept parts of her face covered. These choices weren't just about appearance. They were calculated efforts to conceal signs of mistreatment. Her family didn't yet realize that the calm appearance was a mask and that Junior Benitez would soon take control of her life in a much more disturbing way. In 2019, Junior Benitez signed with the Mexican club Atlético San Luis. Annabelia moved with him, leaving Argentina behind. That change, leaving her country and her support system, gave Benitez the opening he needed to isolate her completely. Soon after they settled into their new residence, he took away all her means of communication, her phone, her computer, everything. But that wasn't all. He also confiscated her identification documents, her passport, all cash, and every bank card she had. This left Annabelia with no way to make purchases, travel around the city, or even attempt to return to Argentina. She was trapped inside a private residence with no access to basic resources. As a professional athlete, Junior Benitez had a busy schedule filled with training sessions and road games. During these times, Annabelia was left locked in the apartment. Based on confirmed reports, Junior would leave her alone 4 days at a time with no access to food while he was away at matches or training camps. When she tried to speak up about it upon his return, her concerns were met with physical force. Back in Buenos Aires, Carlos and Cecilia spent several days unable to reach their daughter. Alarmed by the silence, they called Junior directly. His response was cold and sharp. He claimed Annabelia had either lost her phone charger or that her phone had stopped working altogether. He demanded that Carlos and Cecilia stop calling him, blaming his packed professional schedule and making it clear he didn't want to be disturbed. It was during this time that Annabelia made her first attempt to escape. She managed to leave the house, but Junior quickly noticed she was gone. He caught up with her on the street and in front of witnesses forcibly dragged her back inside, gripping her arms as she resisted. Case files also reference testimony alleging that Junior used heated objects to cause burns. What was happening in Mexico remained hidden from authorities until Annabelia finally encountered someone willing to help. During her second attempt to flee the house in Mexico, Annabelia met a man on the street named Enrique. He gave her the opportunity to contact her family in Argentina. Annabelia told her parents what was happening and asked them to arrange an emergency return home, while her father worked from Buenos Aires to purchase a plane ticket remotely. Enrique paid for a hotel room, giving her a safe place to stay until her flight. The following morning, Enrique drove Annabelia to the airport. He stayed with her until she reached the start of the official security and immigration process. That's when Junior appeared in the terminal. He ran through the building loudly calling out Annabelia's name. He spotted her while she was already standing in line for passport control near the departure area. Despite Junior's presence and his attempts to draw attention, Annabelia didn't change course. She passed through the security checkpoint, an area he couldn't enter without a ticket, and boarded the plane. It was the first time she had managed to break free from Junior Bonitez's physical control while outside Argentina. When she arrived back in Buenos Aires, Carlos and Cecilia documented multiple physical injuries on their daughter. Over the following weeks, the family focused on helping Annabelia recover. All contact with Junior was cut off and she remained at her parents' home in Almirante Brown. After Annabelia returned to Argentina, Junior also left Mexico. He initiated a meeting during which he apologized for his actions. Despite the previously documented injuries, Junior persuaded Annabelia to resume the relationship. Soon after, the couple traveled to Ecuador, where he signed a contract with Line Sporting Club. In Ecuador, the pattern repeated itself. The distance from her family allowed Junior to return to aggressive behavior. By the end of 2019, Annabelia severed the relationship for good and returned to her parents' home on her own. That return marked the end of their shared living arrangement, but not the end of his control. In early 2020, as the pandemic spread and strict lockdown measures were introduced, travel became limited. Annabelia remained isolated in her parents' home. After years of mistreatment, she lived in a state of constant panic and hypervigilance. Junior Bonitez used that psychological vulnerability to maintain his influence over her. He rented a house just a short distance from the Ayala family residence. He began driving past their windows regularly in his car, a subtle but persistent reminder of his presence. Eventually, he introduced routine video calls into their daily lives. Junior claimed he just wanted to check in and make sure Annabelia was safe, often saying he wanted to greet her parents as well. Over time, those calls became longer and more frequent. The Ayala family gradually became used to the sight of Junior's face constantly appearing on Annabelia's device screen. Carlos believed that digital contact was at least safer than physical presence, never realizing that this would evolve into a full-time surveillance system. That system reached its peak when Junior handed Annabelia a tablet that she was instructed to keep with her at all times. According to his rules, the device had to remain powered on 24/7. The camera streamed live video at all hours, and the GPS tracked her every move. The tablet stayed with her at the kitchen table, in the bathroom, even on trips to the grocery store. At night, the lens had to be pointed directly at her bed. Any interruption in the signal, whether from internet issues or a power outage, would lead to Junior showing up at the gate within minutes. In such cases, he demanded that Annabelia come outside and stand with him until the connection was restored. Inside this digital cage, a strict set of restrictions applied. She was not allowed to speak with friends, aunts, uncles, or any other relatives. Even casual conversations with her own parents inside the house were monitored through the device's microphone. To control her behavior further, Junior used a remote audio trigger. If someone appeared in the camera frame whom he hadn't approved, he would activate a piercing siren through the tablet speaker. The sound was harsh, designed to interrupt. Upon hearing it, Annabelia was required to immediately cut off all interaction and retreat to her room. The family didn't dare destroy the device. Junior had warned them repeatedly that his money and connections could locate them anywhere in the country if they tried to run. The house in Almirante Brown had effectively become a surveillance zone. Every word, every action watched and judged in real time by the man who had once claimed to love her. By 2021, the hidden control turned into open aggression. One evening while Carlos and Cecilia were away, Junior broke into the house. He accessed Annabelia's personal computer, went through her private messages, then wiped the hard drive and reset the system entirely. When her parents returned, they found Annabelia in a state of emotional collapse. That incident led to the family's first official report to local authorities, an act that only escalated the aggression. Junior Bonitez began openly stalking the entire Ayala family. He developed a disturbing pattern of showing up at their home in the middle of the night, always at exactly 3 a.m., choosing an hour when neighbors were least likely to hear or intervene. During one of these break-ins, Carlos and Cecilia were jolted awake by noises coming from their daughter's bedroom. They found Annabelia on the floor, injured with furniture in disarray. When Carlos tried to protect his daughter, Junior pulled a firearm and pointed it at the parents, threatening them with Physical harm for having reported him to the police. The aggression didn't stop there. In another incident, Junior returned to the house with a knife and slashed the tires on the family's cars. Around 3 a.m. that night, he forced Annabelia to let him in once again, leading to a violent confrontation with her father. Junior struck Carlos hard in the face. A medical evaluation revealed a fracture to his orbital bone, resulting in partial vision loss and chronic pain that Carlos still lives with today. That assault led to a new criminal case, but Junior's status and financial resources allowed him to avoid jail time. After this attack, Argentina's legal system issued a restraining order requiring Junior to stay at least 1,000 feet away from the Ayala family. He was also placed under house arrest. But that decision came with a serious flaw. Given Junior's fame, the judge deemed it unnecessary to fit him with an electronic tracking bracelet. The assumption was that he would follow the rules voluntarily. That ruling gave Junior even more freedom. He continued living his public lifestyle, frequently spotted at nightclubs and private parties. Sightings confirmed by multiple witnesses. The court allowed him to leave house arrest during certain hours for professional obligations, making it impossible to effectively monitor his movements. Meanwhile, the Ayala family lived in a constant state of siege in Almirante Brown. Carlos invested in a professional-grade security system and reinforced the house's doors, but none of it stopped the harassment. Security cameras routinely recorded Junior's pickup truck parked outside the home late at night. The family submitted 5 more formal complaints, complete with video evidence reporting that he was violating the terms of his restriction. Law enforcement took no action to increase the severity of the measures. Junior taunted the situation, telling Annabelia via the tablet that his fame made him untouchable. His lack of consequences enabled him not just to continue surveillance, but to psychologically wear the family down, constantly reminding them how powerless they were against his wealth and celebrity. By December 2023, Junior's obsession reached a new level. During the Christmas holidays, the family decided to invite relatives over in an attempt to restore a sense of normal life. But Junior, watching everything unfold through the tablet, demanded that each guest step in front of the camera so he could verify their identity. He personally questioned people, asking who they were and how long they planned to stay. Annabelia was forced to walk through every room with the device turned on to prove there were no unauthorized visitors. During a holiday dinner, when her cousins arrived at the house, Junior forbade Annabelia from spending time with them. On his orders, she was forced to go to her bedroom and remain there, alone under constant camera surveillance. On December 30th, at around 4:00 p.m., security cameras recorded Junior's car parked outside the gate. The footage shows Annabelia getting out of his vehicle after a brief conversation and walking back into the house. Relatives later noticed that after this visit, her physical condition worsened. She complained of severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. On New Year's Eve, December 31st, the family gathered once again in the living room. Around midnight, her parents and relatives approached their daughter's bedroom to invite her to join them for the traditional holiday toast. Annabelia didn't respond to the knocking. Remembering Junior's previous restrictions, they chose not to enter, assuming she was following yet another order to remain isolated. They had no idea that behind that closed door, the final moments of a long and devastating ordeal were unfolding, watched live by someone through a phone screen. That night, while Cecilia and Carlos were preparing to raise their glasses in the living room of their Almirante Brown home, the final act of a 5-year nightmare was playing out behind the locked bedroom door. According to investigators, Annabelia was positioned in front of the active tablet, broadcasting everything in real time to Junior. He wasn't just watching. He was directing what was happening, using the surveillance system as a tool of total and merciless control. Junior delivered a final ultimatum. If Annabelia did not end her life right then and there in front of him, he would break into the house and harm her parents. A woman whose will had been systematically crushed by years of isolation and aggression saw this as the only way to protect Carlos and Cecilia. A reconstruction carried out by forensic specialists using cloud data and video call logs allowed investigators to recreate the night minute by minute. Annabelia carried out fatal self-harm by hanging in her bedroom using what was available to her. The tablet mounted on a tripod had been positioned to give Junior a clear, unobstructed view. The camera captured every movement, every preparation. At the same time, laughter and voices of relatives echoed from the other side of the door as they waited for her to join them. Through the tablet's microphone, Junior could clearly hear her parents calling Annabelia, asking her to come out and celebrate with them. He remained silent. He didn't end the call. He didn't contact emergency services. He didn't shout a warning to her parents that something irreversible was happening just feet away. Investigators later classified his silent visual presence as deliberate coordination of the act. An especially significant factor was Annabelia's extremely fragile physical condition. The injuries she sustained on December 30th during their last meeting left her in constant pain and struggling to breathe. That physical exhaustion, combined with relentless psychological pressure, stripped her of the last strength to resist. Afterward, Junior sent a series of voice messages to his relatives. In them, he coldly and without remorse described everything he had watched on the screen. He spoke in detail about Annabelia's final moments, confirming he witnessed every second. For prosecutors, those recordings, along with the tablet's data logs, became crucial evidence. The lack of physical contact at the moment of death did not remove responsibility. Junior had controlled her actions remotely, turning digital connection into a weapon and her love for her parents into a deadly lever. Junior Benitez was arrested shortly after Annabelia's body was discovered. The grounds for the arrest were surveillance camera recordings from December 30th, which clearly showed him violating the terms of his house arrest. and the restraining order that barred him from approaching her. Despite his legal team's efforts to dispute the identity of the driver in the footage, Junior was taken into custody. The turning point came when he broke the court order one final time. He showed up at the cemetery during Annabelia's funeral, an appearance confirmed by multiple eyewitnesses. That incident led the court to replace his previous restrictions with indefinite detention. At this time, the investigation remains ongoing. Junior Benitez is facing multiple charges, including incitement to self-harm, making violent threats against Carlos and Cecilia, and a long-term pattern of aggressive behavior in a domestic setting. The case has sparked widespread public outcry in Argentina. Through media outlets and social networks, Annabelia's family is demanding the harshest possible sentence, pointing out that the legal system had ignored their pleas for years, giving an abuser the space to maintain control. Annabelia's story has since become a haunting example of how modern technology can be weaponized to create digital captivity. While Junior awaits his final sentencing, his career in professional soccer is officially over and all clubs have cut ties with him. The Ayala family continues to fight in court, determined to make their daughter's case a legal precedent, one that drives reform in how domestic violence and cyberstalking are handled by the justice system. The investigation into the physical injuries sustained in the car before the tragedy is also still underway and could lead to even more serious charges.